Hello everyone, thank you so much for joining us at this panel. I know it's lunchtime, so we appreciate you giving us this 30 minutes. My name is Jessica Caldwell and I'll be chairing this discussion today with Ian Smithyman and Carl Plant, where we're going to be discussing how we navigate the challenges in this current, really defining moment for environmental sustainability when it comes to managing large commercial estates. We really want to tackle in this session what are the challenges that businesses like Stonegate and LoweConex have encountered when unlocking access to data and the challenging environments we work in, understanding that not one size fits all, and how we can apply real-world solutions to craft a cost-effective result. What tools and techniques have LoweConex deployed to eliminate the pathway for Stonegate on this really challenging journey? And finally, what impact do people play in this as well? I know today we're looking at the new innovations and technologies, but actually what can people, especially skilled professionals, bring to this? So I'm going to hand over very briefly to Ian and Carl just to introduce themselves before we get stuck into some questions.
Yeah, hi everyone, my name's Ian Smithyman and I'm an Caldwell X LoweConex. I've been in the business just over 15 months now. I've been in and around this industry for about 20 odd years.
Hi everybody, my name is Carl Plant. I'm the Head of Facilities Management at Stonegate, which the first bit most of you are going is who the hell is Stonegate? Never heard of them. So you may or may not know, we are the biggest pub company in the UK. So this is a rare sober day for me. Normally I'm on the beer by this point. But this is a great opportunity for me to talk to you about the journey that we've been on. So I've been in the FM industry for 20 years, last 10 or so mainly built around transformational change within the sector.
Brilliant. And as I said, I'm Jessica Caldwell, I'm Head of Product for LoweConex, and really our solution is where we try and complete connectivity beats total control. And that will be the end of the slogans from me. So I think we want to start with some questions. Carl, if we could go to you first, can you shed some light for the audience today on the challenges Stonegate have encountered in collecting and managing data across such a diverse property portfolio, and then how these challenges have impacted how you access the data within your role in facilities management?
Yeah, of course, great question. So within Stonegate, we've got 4,500 pubs across the UK. That includes some of the big high street chain brands that we're used to, like Slug and Letty's, Be It One, Pop World, for example, is a nightclub. But it's a business that actually is really young. It's only actually been in existence for about 10 years. And in the last 5 years, it's had massive, rapid acceleration. So it started as a pub company with 333 sites. And over a 4-year period, we've now got 4,500 through a number of big acquisitions along the way. What that's meant is we are really data poor, so we don't really fully understand the estate and what assets that we've got because the information that was passed over through the acquisitions wasn't brilliant for us. But if you think about the types of venues that we operate, they are all very, very different. So we have got anything from grade 1 listed churches through to modern high-rise multi-block units. And getting the same kind of data to apply to all of those buildings has been really challenging. And one of the ways we looked at doing it was to use people, actually have people across the estate to try and gather that data for us. Another way that we've looked at is to use technology, and that's been a really difficult conversation in the business around why would we use tech when we've got people in our sites already? And we'll talk about that a little bit more, I'm sure, as we go through, but that's been a big driver for us in terms of starting to look at how we could use mass data to become more of a data-led business. Hospitality, for those who've worked in it, is very perception-driven. So all of the decisions will be based on the strength of the person behind the bar. If you're a great GM, you'll get investment in your pub. That's how hospitality's always worked. What we're trying to do within Stonegate is work to a world where actually we use data and automation to lead us to make the right decision in the next steps of what we need to do.
Brilliant. And Ian, in response to that, what approaches have we been able to bring as LoweConex in tackling some of those challenges that the Stonegate portfolio have experienced?
Yeah, so I think great question, and Carl's sort of led to this really, really well because every site is different, and trust me, as you go through and install all of these sites, you realise how different they are. And even the brands that are very similar, they operate differently depending on where they are in the country and so on and so forth. So we've been able to offer a tailor-made solution at the site level for the guys at Stonegate, which has really helped us and then learn together around some of these things and change the dynamic of travel a little bit on how we we've operated as an organisation too. We've given Carl data now, so we talk about being data poor, but actually we're now making data-led decisions. We talk about pre-planned maintenance routines and seeing if the equipment's being fixed when they say it's being fixed, and then all of the data that comes on the back of that. So we've been able to offer Carl a tailor-made approach at both the brand and pub level, which allows him to make better decisions.
Yeah, and I think just an important point on that as well, when we talk about every venue is different, you think you can have a pub that at 2 o'clock in the afternoon has got 5 people drinking in it. All of a sudden the football crowd turns up and you've got 300 people drinking in it. Temperature extremes go massively out. Historically, that caught us out by surprise. We've got ACES systems working really hard. Now what we're getting is rich data being fed back in where we can actually understand why did something happen at that time, where we can do root cause analysis off the back of it. So we're no longer data blind, we're getting the data feeds back in, and then we can twin the people with that to try and understand what the profiling is around it. What that'll mean is we've got a much better platform then to move forward to be able to automate those decisions, because for us, one of the big drivers is always about getting the guest experience right. So we don't want our general managers worrying about what the air conditioning temperature is. We want them focused on serving guests and having a great environment. By automating that, we can take that responsibility away from them.
Absolutely, it's such a critical point, allowing your colleagues to do what they do best, which is actually service your customers. And Ian, that leads on nicely to the fact that, picking on what you spoke about there, one size does not fit all. And could you elaborate a bit more on some of the solutions that we did implement within the Stonegate estate?
Yeah, so there's probably 3 solutions that we ended up with in various different ways, ranging from a full BMS implementation through to our own IoT gateway technology to the very basic last one out switch. And again, each one of those solutions has been tailored due to the size of the estate, the size of the pub, and the value that we generate, or the return on investment that we generate for Stonegate.
I think what's important there is aligning both the sustainability objectives and the financial objectives as well, and having that diversity of solutions, I'm sure has fulfilled some of those objectives.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say in the hospitality world, energy was just a necessary evil. Historically, it was something that you had to use to be able to run the outlets. Since the energy crisis has kicked in and the costs have increased, obviously it's a much bigger part of what we're looking to achieve now. Nobody wants to pay more for the pint. That is a fact on the high street. Pints are expensive nowadays, and that does hit us from a trade perspective. So for us, if we can manage the cost base much better and do that in a way that is much simpler than actually thinking about how we take labour out of the model, for example, that means we can still provide that great experience, but also offering a great set point on price as well. So for us, having that balance of the data and tools that Ian and LoweConex have been able to deploy have really allowed us to focus on where we can optimise our delivery model moving forward.
Absolutely, and is that message helped you advocate for the business to invest in technology?
Yeah, it certainly has. We started small with a pilot. Going into a pub company and talking about wonderful tech and the Internet of Things. There's a culture in the pub industry called bar to boardroom, and most people start pulling pints and end up at an exec round table. Talking to them about stuff that isn't natural to their environment is very difficult to do. So we started with a really small pilot across 40 outlets. We were able to demonstrate very quickly the benefit that brought back to the business in terms of financial returns and operational benefit. And then we've trialled that for about 5 to 6 months. We've used the data to be able to then profile what the potential savings will be across the rest of the business. And that's led us to just commit to another broader set of sites that we're going to start looking at. What I will say, we've got real honesty coming back though from LoweConex with data, because actually there are some outlets where the technology just won't provide any benefit. So for us, we're looking at those big hitters where we go, where do we get the best incremental gains by deploying the tech and the people and the insights that comes with it.
Absolutely. And Carl, just to stick with you, what role has having these analytics brought to the property and facilities team? So having these analytics on hand, how have those insights helped that influencing process of how you manage your energy consumption, your maintenance strategies, and how important is that?
Yeah, it's really important. Our energy bill is huge. You're talking hundreds of millions per year in terms of spend. So for us to get a level of control over that meant that we could do it in a centralised way rather than relying on 4,500 general managers was critical to our mission success. What we've tried to do is twin data and technology with people. So we're doing the cultural reset about the need to be energy efficient. That takes time, and actually the reality is when you're trying to train 4,500 people on how to be more energy efficient in their outlet, it was a double whammy because it's a transient workforce. Not many people come into the hospitality sector and stay there for the rest of their working careers. So it was an ongoing training challenge for us. What we found by deploying the tech is that we've been able to give our colleagues at site a level of incentivisation that says, look, we're doing a lot of this for you already. So we've now got a bonus scheme in place for the colleagues around energy reduction. They're targeted to deliver 10% savings year on year in terms of their energy spend. We've given them 5% free of charge just by putting this equipment in place. And that's just by controlling basic things like HVAC equipment. So that's meant that from a colleague perspective, it's no longer a massive journey for them to make 10%. They can see we're doing bits on their behalf, and the culture is really rapidly turning around now where the colleagues are buying into that month.
Brilliant. I know, Ian, you have a background as well in this world before joining our organisation. It would be great for the audience if you could elaborate a bit on the value that tools from solutions like ours at LoweConex are actually bringing to these teams, especially when we're talking about the insights, the impact it's going to have on financial incentives, on decision making, and how these two worlds merge.
Yeah, it's a really great question actually, and the value is demonstrated by the fact that if we're managing a pub overnight and they're too hot or too cold, they no longer have to get Carl out of bed, they get me out of bed instead. So there's an opportunity there to really take the maintenance element out of this for Carl and the team in Stonegate, because the basics of turning AC up and down is relatively straightforward when you've got connectivity. So doing that, it'll be really helpful, I guess, for Carl and the team. Also for the pub managers to be able to react to those, really, really passionate group of individuals that are very set in their ways, but also very open to different ideas and different things around what to do. So that's a real benefit for them, and we're helping them achieve their 10% saving by doing some of that work for them, which is also great, and allows them to do what their job is, which is serve customers and get that colleague experience or customer experience out there as it would in any environment, not just the pub trade.
Yeah, I think we see this as the start of the journey. So basics like temperature management for us is just phase one. We would love to get into a world where we can use the platform and the technology to get more predictive with our maintenance requirements. So actually having the assets telling us when they need maintenance rather than our people having to do it. And that in the hospitality sector is really important because some of our nightclub venues only trade Thursday to Sunday. So when they open up at Thursday at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, they need to know all of their assets are working. If we can find a way of being able to test that remotely and monitor it 24/7, we can give them that certainty that the venue is ready to trade before they get in. So that's a massive hearts and minds piece for people. That means that they now feel comfortable that as a property function, we are absolutely supporting the business and the guest experience rather than them having to do all the level of the system.
That leads into a really interesting point around the intersection between managing an asset for energy purposes and then managing an asset for its maintenance, extending its lifespan, and ensuring that you can trade when you're supposed to trade. Ian, I don't know if you'd like to elaborate a bit more on that from our experience in terms of managing that data.
Yeah, it is. It's a really fine balance sometimes, because the easy way to save energy is to turn everything off. And if you turn everything off in a pub that's full of people, especially when Carl says, and you won't believe, a nightclub can go from having like one or two people, probably my age, that are in the nightclub at 9 o'clock at night. By the time you got till 10:30, there's probably 700 people in the nightclub. When all the younger people have come in and start to have a good time, so that's when they all go out now. And that environment is completely different. So you can imagine if I turn everything off, I've got a nightclub with 3 people, and that's fantastic. 700 people, it's going to be a bit warm in there for sure. So we've got to balance the two things. But again, one of the biggest wins with the group of Stonegate is really turning stuff off when there's no one in the building and doing that in an automated fashion, because I've seen lots of opportunity to put the last person out switching it. But if you don't automate that, somebody will still forget to switch the switch, or the switch is at the wrong door, and so on and so forth. So there's lots of opportunity in there. And balancing the two things around energy and maintenance is critical to keeping car trading.
Yeah, I think if we go back to the people side, bear in mind most of what we do is late night trading. You imagine you work in that kind of venue, it's 3 o'clock in the morning, the last thing you want to do is think about have I turned everything off. You probably just want to get home at that point, don't you, get into bed. And that's what we found. Whilst we were trying to incentivise people to do these things, the actual uptake was quite poor in there because it wasn't high on the colleague agenda. By delivering the technology in, we've actually turned that around now. So we're saying that we'll take care of that stuff that allows you to get back to your families. What we need you to do is do the stuff that actually we're not there with the technology solution to be able to do yet. And by marrying the two together, we really are getting some great results across the business.
Fantastic. Just before we talk about the importance of people, I'd like to touch a little bit on reporting and having trustworthy data. Ian, I know through working across our customer portfolio, having that information easily accessible is really important for organisations, and making sure that it's real time, it's actionable, you can do something with it. It'd be great if you could elaborate a bit more for our audience around that.
Yeah, so there's lots of different ways to view the data, because look, data is really important for Carl and the team to make decisions. So we've got our real-time reporting visualization tool that Carl and the team have access to. We've got then the reports that come on the back of the visualization tool and all the data that comes back out. And then we have a monthly governance report that Carl takes to his energy board around the performance against each of the sites. And because the data is real time and accessible to the customer, it's the same level of truth across the organisation. So Carl sees nothing different to me, which is both good and bad, trust me. But yeah, so there's lots of different options, and every customer is slightly different as to what they get and what they want. But actually, the tailored approach that we use for Stonegate is they get access to everything in real time.
Carl, having that transparency within the data, I'm sure makes your work less challenging, perhaps, if you have to report back on a successful project.
Yeah, it's certainly hard. Having a single version of the truth is critical to any project and any data set, right? It's allowed us to have really simplified reporting that is automated and available to us through a real-time dashboard. And we've used that in multiple ways. One, at a program level, to be able to outline the return on investment back to the board and the investment group that we've got. Another one from an operational perspective, so we can now lead a table where each of our sites are at, and we can use proper, insightful data to understand where we might need to focus our attention against where we need to go and do some reward and recognition for people that really are adopting and taking on, embracing new ways of working. For me, the more data that we can get, the better we can make decisions. And actually what we're developing with LoweConex is a really rich data profile for each of our sites. That means that we actually know now when something's going outside of parameter, and we've got an action point that drives off the back of that, as opposed to where we were before when we started, which was completely blind in terms of what was happening across the estate.
Absolutely. There's been challenges from going from completely blind to data overload, and it's about streamlining that and finding the value. That really is the most important, and knowing where the action can be taken.
Yeah, I mean, you can get analysis paralysis, right? You get loads of great data coming back to you. You can spend hours trying to mine through it and understand what's important. The great news about partnering with somebody like Ian is that actually the intelligence that you guys have got that sits outside the system, which is people-driven, is really helping us to drill into that data and understand what the important points are. So there's been a definite benefit for us as a business there by being able to refine that data down into something that is actually insightful for us to make actions with.
Brilliant. And that nicely leads on to the discussion around people. We all know that today a large focus of the event and this panel is around the automation of certain actions. It's about utilising data. But for us in our organisation, having the expertise in both the industry and in the technology and in the energy sector is critically important to delivering meaningful value to our customers. So, Carl, I'll start with you. In your experience, how does the expertise that you've experienced with professionals such as your team at Stonegate and then support from the likes of Ian and others in our organisation help amplify the value and validate the sort of infrastructure investment that you make when implementing a technology like this?
So I think the financial returns speak for themselves. This is probably the third company that I've worked in where we've deployed this kind of technology, and they're all different sectors, and the returns have always stacked up. So there is definitely a financial benefit there that means that from a people perspective, you can take that pressure away from your frontline colleagues and allow them to focus on what they do best and what they're employed to do. We've also been able to reinvest some of that benefit that we've taken, because quite often we've actually outperformed where we work, which has allowed us to invest in training with our people. So we've been able to use some of those savings to actually drive more from a people and a culture perspective across the teams. From my own team within FM, the data and the insights that we get from the platform allow us to target where my field team actually respond to. So, it gives us really great insights there. That means that the guys aren't running from one side to another to try and look at what the problem is. They're using the data to lead us to the right location where the problem might be, which in turn means that we can focus on all of the other hundreds of issues that we've got across every site, across every day as well.
Absolutely. And Ian, just thinking from a LoweConex perspective, when we consider the integral human element in the delivery of our solutions for clients at Stonegate, how invaluable is it to have the skills in the team to understand the industry and the impact?
Yeah, really, really important because, and I guess that's how the partnership has worked as well, Jess, right? Because, from a technology perspective, the team are fantastic, they know what they're talking about, but from a pub trade perspective, we had no idea. We're walking into the unknown, and actually without Carl and the team, it wouldn't have been possible to get to where we've got to. And we deal with pub managers every day of the week now, which is slightly unusual. They're a slightly strange breed in the nicest possible way, but they care passionately about their environment. And actually, what we found is we've got lots more engagement from some of those pub managers than we've ever got from the other people that we've dealt with, because it's kind of accepted, done and dusted in some of those industries like retail, whereas in the pub trade it's new. We've created a lot of excitement and a lot of opportunity. But having people that understand the business on both sides from a technology point of view or from the pub trade has actually been really useful for both parties to go be successful in the last sort of 5-6 months for sure.
Absolutely. That culture piece is huge there. When you're bringing something new and exciting to an industry or to the pub managers, there is a feeling of opportunity there, that willingness to participate for that wider goal, sustainability, more efficient operations, having data to make smart decisions, increase profitability of the individual sites. So having that partnership is really important for us.
Yeah, it's a lot about trust as well, Jess. So when you think about some of these pub managers, they would have been completely in control of everything that they did in every environment they ever worked in. We come in and take away control. Well, that's quite a scary place for somebody to be that's never had that level of automation before. So there is a lot of trust, and trust me, if the product doesn't do what it says it does in the time it says it's going to do, you lose that credibility very, very quickly. So having that level of trust across the organisation has been really helpful as well.
100%. Nice for me to hear as well. I think what's really important is not applying automation for automation's sake, not applying technology for the sake of it, but having it work in partnership with the folks on the ground and building that trust that we're automating the right things for the right reasons for the business. It's critically important. Okay, I'm going to hand over to the floor if we have any questions. Don't be shy. Yes?
Hi there. You started your discussion mentioning that getting people to buy in on the site was going to drive the capital equipment investment and technology. What impact are people having on site that you're not going to get from having the right technology in place anyway?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing that we learned out of the whole trial that we did was it's impossible to predict the trading pattern of a hospitality environment. You might forecast to say that you're going to get 500 people in a nightclub one night, and you might get 20 because it might be heavily raining outside, for example. So we will always prescribe a set point in terms of temperature. What we've done is allowed the local teams to have some discretion over that. So they know, for example, if they've got a big party in and it's going to start at 8 o'clock rather than 10 o'clock, we allow them to move the temperature slightly on that so that they can cope with that heat volume that's going to come in. So we can't do that remotely because we just haven't got to the level of complexity where we started to plug event bookings into the system yet. So we found that actually by allowing people to have some of that local control, we get the best of both worlds. Because what Ian and the team can do is then return that back to the normalised set point afterwards. All the team needs to do is change it to where they need to be. It's also opened their eyes in terms of just actually how easy it is to save energy. So some of the things that we're doing is giving them the catalyst to go, actually, if you can save 5% there, that other 5% that I need to save to get to my bonus is now much more manageable. So they're invested far greater into some of the basics like turning lights off where we haven't been able to put last man out switches in, for example. And we also have had some really poor behaviours where in the back house areas, for example, so a lot of our publicans live on site, we don't control that because they've got a right to quiet enjoyment to their premises. But we're finding a knock-on impact where they're actually now attaching that energy and sustainability into their home environment as well as the pub, not just the trading environment. So it's a mindset change that is driving, but the actual technology has been the catalyst to be able to do that. Yeah.
So you mentioned about the fact that you're struggling to get personnel to buy into it because there's quite a turnaround in personnel due to the industry. Are you standardising process across the sector itself, or to help with that?
So we are standardising design. So the intention is now, as our model blueprint goes forward, that when we refit properties, we will put the technology into it. So that's a way of us being able to grow it across the estate. And then from a people perspective, we've been working with our HR and operations teams to build that into the induction profile. So any new colleague comes into the business now gets inducted into the technology and why it's important. And if they don't have the technology, why it's important that they do the manual intervention off the back of that as well. So we're absolutely trying to get it embedded into the business. Like with any cultural change, you need to create a movement, right? So we've done some great high-profile projects like the sites that drive the most energy and efficiency. All of the team go into a prize draw to win a car. That's the kind of stuff that we've been able to do to get people hooked into it. But once you get that movement going, it's amazing what you can do by getting people behind it.
Brilliant. Thank you. Those were great questions. Anyone else? Hiya.
Hi, thank you. So it's interesting to hear you've got the 3 different models of full BMS through to the kind of gateway through to last mile search. On the gateway, I'm just interested, what assets have you found it's worth kind of connecting to that gateway, and what have you just decided it's not worth ever connecting to it? So I imagine it's a business case for a particular type of air conditioning or boilers, but maybe not right in there. What assets are worth kind of connecting to that gateway?
Yeah, so it's a really great question actually, because you'll hear a lot of people talk about smart buildings, connected buildings, and they go down to the very nth degree in terms of the assets. So from Stonegate's perspective, HVAC is our biggest consumer, right? Closely followed by kitchen equipment, closely followed by refrigeration. Because actually there is quite a lot of refrigeration in the Stonegate pub, you just don't see it. Some of it's in the cellar and some of it's behind the bar, so you don't often see it. So we've started with the HVAC is the biggest consumer asset, and that's where the payback will be. And then that should allow us to pay for the other assets to be done at slightly more complicated. So Carl talked about a very diverse estate. With a diverse estate, lots of different brands, lots of different companies in the past, there is no standardisation across that estate. And retrofitting 60,000 refrigeration controllers across that estate would be first of all costly and then probably not necessary at this point in time, so relatively small usage. So HVAC, fridge, kitchen equipment are the 3 in Stonegate that we'll target to deliver the benefit.
Quick question for you, Carl. You spoke about the sort of cultural change at the sort of people, bartender level, I guess, the general managers. One thing I'm conscious of is around predictive maintenance and implementing into people. How do you envision the cultural change with your field teams going, in essence, can some of the predictive maintenance replace some of the tasks they're doing, and how do you foresee difficulties, challenges, and the ways to overcome them?
Yeah, so that's exactly the reason why we want to do it. So we want to get into a world where the predictive maintenance takes away the requirement for the people to do anything off the back of that. We know it's possible. So Ian and I worked in a previous business together, and we did that with all of our refrigeration estate. So that was all automated. The assets would tell us that they were offline. The system would automatically raise a work order after triaging that to make sure it wasn't just something simple like the doors were left open. And then if we needed to, we'd dispatch an engineer to site to go and fix the challenge. Bizarrely, actually flagged up some other challenges for us in terms of people going, I didn't know the engineer was coming, therefore I wasn't prepared for them. So you have to think about how you cover that angle of it as well. But we've set quite a bold statement across our business where we want to take away, on average, 1 day's worth of labour time from each of our general managers every month. That's the amount of time that they think they shouldn't be working on property stuff that they are currently. So for us, that's a massive incentive. If we can get 7 hours, 8 hours back from every general manager across 4,500 sites, there's a massive efficiency in the labour model there. We'll do that through standardising assets, better plan maintenance, but also better from a predictive maintenance point of view as well, to make sure that simple things like just actually let's get an engineered site before it fails, then we don't have the customer impact, but equally importantly, making sure that the colleagues know what's happening and when somebody's turning up. Because for a lot of our suppliers, they start work at 9 in the morning. A lot of our sites don't open until 3. So we can get people in, but we have to give the site notification that we're coming in. And that's again something that we want to look at whether we can automate and do things like outbound telephony or a text message stream to do that.
Brilliant. I think we have time for one more. Also, if I could just ask Ian and Carl for one closing comment. If we had a key takeaway for the audience today, if they're at the start of their journey, what would it be?
There you go. You go first.
Okay. So from a client side perspective, it's about finding the what's in it for you from this kind of technology. Every company in this audience out here will tell you that their platform, their technology will deliver you all the great things that you want to know. A lot of what I found over the years is some of that technology actually doesn't apply and fit to your business. And I found previously of trying to make it fit. Actually, the best benefits I've had and better conversations I've had with senior board members is focusing on the one or two bits that we know will have real tangible benefits to the business. And as Ian was saying, that was page fat for us and people efficiency. So we know there's further benefit that we can make, but from a sales pitch back into the business, we focus really on those two channels because we know that that will talk numbers and it will talk people benefit. Beyond that, the rest of it is just upside. So for us, it was about the uptake for me would be the technology works, you've just got to find how it best fits into your business and then use that to drive your businesses.
Fantastic.
Good question, Jess. Thanks for putting that to me. I guess for me, from a supplier side, is listen to what the customer wants and give them the so what. Because there's so many technology solutions out there right now today that can give you, like Carl says, they can apply. But if you don't know the so what, then what's the point? And I think you talked about it, which assets to do. And you see people go down to burglar alarms and fire alarms around connectivity, which is brilliant, but doesn't save you any money. The jury's still out on some of those things, right? So that would be listen to what the customer says and give them the so what from what they've told you.
Fantastic. Well, thanks so much everyone for joining us. If you'd like to learn more about Stonegate, there's information here, or you might be able to grab a card on the way out or go for a pint there after the show. It's usually the best way to learn. And if you'd like to speak to myself or Ian about our solution with LoweConex, feel free to grab us for a coffee. But thanks so much for the brilliant questions.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks.